Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Tim Walz says he is the code talker for white men. I think his code book may be broken. But before we get to any of that, got some breaking news for you right now.
Talk Radio 570 KVI. Breaking news on the Ari Hoffman Show.
I got this right before we went on air today, had to revamp the entire show. Trump's Department of Education and the Department of Justice's Title IX Special Investigations Team is initiating an investigation into the Washington office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction for potential violations of FERPA, PPRA, and Title IX. Basically, what's that? A whole bunch of civil rights stuff that our Department of Education, our Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction right here in Washington, that they theoretically violated. What is this over? This is still over the La Center School District. Now, let's boil this down into what this argument is actually about. Chris Reykdal does not want parents having any rights about what their kids' education is about. He doesn't want them knowing what's going on. He doesn't want them knowing what how they're doing in school. He doesn't want them knowing the grades. He doesn't want them knowing if they are talking to the school shrink. Anything about that. The left is saying we're protecting trans rights. The right is saying we just want to know what our kids are doing in school. It's crazy to me that here in Washington, I have to get my kids' permission in order to get their medical records to send them to a camp that I am paying for that requires their medical records so they can take care of the kid during the summer. It's absolutely insane. It's insane to me that we have clinics in the schools that are allowed to keep information about a child's well-being from their own parents. It's beyond crazy. This fight over one school district is bigger than you realize. So Chris Reykdal says, we don't want you guys. We don't want you guys talking to the parents. We had the principal of the Center School District on. He said, I just want to make sure the parents are informed. When the parents are informed, things are better. We can tell them what's going on at school. The parents can help at home. If we can't tell them anything, how can we even discuss if they have bad grades? Here, let me give you a practical example. Let's leave out all the trans stuff, all the LGBTQIA stuff for a second. The kid is struggling in school, and the kid is squinting to see the blackboard. So it's an obvious solution to what's going on, right? Kid can't see the blackboard. Kid may need glasses. Technically, they can't tell the parents without the kid's permission if the kid is over the age of 13. That's how insane this is. This is what this fight is about. They don't want to be able to give up any of the information about the kid. They also definitely don't want to be talking about the curriculum, about what they're teaching. How are you supposed to have a parent-teacher conference when you can't discuss what's actually going on in the school? So, according to the DOE and the DOJ, OSPI ordered La Center School District to change policies to protect gender-expansive students in a manner that is contrary to federal law, including mandating that the district won't proactively share information about any student's gender identity with parents. And La Center School District says that's insane. Because we know a lot of times when these kids are feeling a certain way, it's a symptom of a bigger problem. Something isn't right in their head. And you know what? If that gets me in trouble for saying it, so be it. If you feel you were born in the wrong body, we used to call that body dysmorphia, where you don't like how you look in the mirror. Now, all of a sudden, it's something that we don't treat. It's something that we go, yeah, you know what? Let's slice and dice that body till we get somewhere else. Julie Hartman, spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Education, said in a statement the department is committed to protecting parents' rights and recently launched FERPA investigations into Maine and California and sent a Dear Colleague letter directing schools to comply with parental rights laws. Now, remember, here in Washington, we had the opportunity to weigh in on parental rights. We had an initiative from our friends at Let's Go Washington. It was so popular that the legislature said, we're going to pass this thing because we don't want to face it at the ballot box. And why did they do that? So they could alter it and mess with it in Olympia this session, which is what they did, and stripped out all the protections for parents. That's what the Democrats did. It still hurts me as a Reagan conservative that I have to be begging the feds for federal intervention. It's crazy to me that I have to be hoping the White House intervenes in Washington because things here have gotten so bad. But now it looks like that's exactly what is happening, where now the feds are saying, you know what, you're in violation. Let's not forget a parents group last week actually went to the Department of Justice. The Washington Parents Network filed a Title VI civil rights complaint with the DOE's Office for Civil Rights against Reykdal, alleging widespread violations of anti-discrimination laws tied to DEI programs in public schools. It looks like we are finally on the radar, and that the Trump administration is realizing what's going on here in Washington and taking action appropriately. Why is it okay for Democrats to discriminate because they don't like something? Would you like it if somebody who's on the opposite side of the political aisle discriminated against somebody because they don't like something? Of course not. So can we be real about what's happening here? The left does not want you to know what's going on with your kids because they think they are better stewards of your children. They are better parents for your children than you. And this is symptomatic of the left. The left feels they know how to spend your money better. They know how to run your life better. They know how to raise your kids better than you. And people on the right say, you can't tell me how to run my kids. Now, for those of you who are saying, well, what about kids whose parents beat them? Or whose parents say, oh, we're going to send you to anti-trans brainwashing or whatever it is. There are already things in place where a kid can go if they are being abused in some way, shape, or form. Those protections already exist here in Washington. What this is about is taking more rights away from parents. So the Department of Education and the Department of Justice are now investigating all of this. Now, you know what's going to happen in response, right? You know that Fergie and Reykdal and Nick Brown are going to say, we're not going to let Trump push us around. But realize what they are fighting for is for parents not to have rights. My Democrat friends, you didn't leave the party left you. I want to know what you think of this, because I know that each of you who listen to the show, if you listen to the show, I know you're a good parent. You know how I know you're a good parent? Because you're listening to this show. And we talk about kid stuff a lot. We talk about parental stuff a lot. Well, you care about your kids regardless of how you vote. And I know that a lot of you, this crazy train has left the station. It is barreling down the tracks, and it is too crazy for a lot of you. Imagine if somebody said to you, yeah, we're not going to tell you how your kid's doing in school. We're not going to tell you if the kid's seeing the school shrink or the school nurse or going to the school clinic. We're not going to tell you about that at all. Imagine if that happened. You wouldn't put up with it because you're good parents who look after your kids. If somebody tries to take away your kids, mama bear is kicking in. You're not going to let me know what's going on with my kids? You don't get to do that. That's what OSPI wants. They'll claim it's about LGBTQ+, whatever it is. That's not what it's about. It's about you not knowing what's going on in your kid's classroom. By the way, it's their own fault we all know about this stuff. Because, yes, there were reporters like Chris Rufo, like me, like Jonathan Cho, like Brandy Cruz, who were exposing all this stuff. But it didn't become big until parents saw it with their own eyes during COVID when they locked everybody down and the kids are at home sitting at the dining room table, the laptop's open, and the parents hear the DEI nonsense, or, hey, let's go to a George Floyd riot. And then all of a sudden the parents freak out and go, this isn't what I'm sending my kid to school for. You guys created this disaster. You guys made it widespread by locking all these kids out of schools for almost 2 years. And the parents aren't putting up with it anymore. Here's something else. It looks like the cavalry is also coming with regards to immigration. Last night, President Trump had a rally in Michigan. And during his rally, Washington State's immigration issues featured very, very prominently. Give a listen.
Just this month, 2 Venezuelan members of TDA, Nicaragua, were arrested in Washington State for kidnapping a 58-year-old woman driving a power drill through her hand to extort her bank account information, shooting her, leaving her for dead. And miraculously, she just survived, but she's not feeling so well. In January, Nicaragua member in Chicago kidnapped 3 women, took them in an alley, lined them up and shot them each in the head. They all died. And the FBI recently assessed that these vicious gangs have been sent by the foreign regime in Venezuela to foment violence and instability in the United States of America. Can't let that happen. And it's not just, in all fairness, not Venezuela. It's all over the world. It's all over. They come in from the Congo. They come in from Africa. The Congo, they emptied out their prisons into our country. But they come from Africa, Asia, South America. They come from all over bad parts of Europe. That's why we've invoked the Alien Enemies Act to expel every foreign terrorist from our soil as quickly as possible.
We discussed that story in depth. We discussed the story of what happened to that poor woman who had her hand drilled by these alleged gang members, or allegedly drilled, however you phrase it, right? Her hand still has a giant hole in it, whether it's alleged or not. They shot her and dumped her body on the side of the road. And these guys were gang members who had driver's licenses here in Washington. And my question is, were they also registered to vote? Because we know at least one of them had a Social Security card on him. Was it a real one? Was it a fake one? We don't know. But is that who's also registered to vote in our elections? Because here in Washington State, if you have a driver's license, you are also registered to vote. And yet the media loses their minds whenever you bring up any of this common sense stuff. These are 80-20 issues. Parents want parental rights. People want to be safe in their communities. People think that illegal immigrant gang member criminals should not be in our country. J.D. Vance was at the cabinet meeting today that they were having to mark 100 days of the Trump administration. And he called out the media. Don't forget, the media's in the room. The media's standing around the outsides of the room. It's not just conservative media in there. It's everybody in there. So J.D. Vance called them out to their faces about them not accurately covering what's going on with this administration and spinning things their own way.
Great job. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, thank you, and thanks to the cabinet. So at the risk of insulting everybody else at the table, I believe that I am the youngest member sitting at the table. And, it occurred to me that from the time that I was born to the time that Donald J. Trump was inaugurated just a few months ago, we went from, again, 40 years, we went from the world's manufacturing superpower to one in which we depend on the People's Republic of China to make the things that we need. We went from the proudest military in the world to one in which we failed to meet our recruiting goals. And we went from one in which bipartisan border policy was the consensus of both Democrats and Republicans to one in which we allowed 20 million people to run roughshod illegally over the countryside, causing crime, causing a stress in the welfare system. And again, that happened over the lifetime of the youngest member of the cabinet. And what has happened in 100 days is that we've started to reverse every single one of those negative trends. And I think what it shows to me is that the president, and you sit in the Oval Office and you see these portraits of presidents past, and let's be honest, most of them have been placeholders. They've been people who have allowed their staff to sign executive orders with an auto pen instead of men of action. And the reason the media attacks this administration as chaotic is because the president is solving the problems the American people set about to solve. He's actually doing the things that he promised that he would do. And Mr. President, it's been an honor to be part of it for the past 100 days. And let me just make one other observation, because it's interesting. I've seen the data, I've monitored it, I've looked at it, but the most underreported fact of the first 100 days is that we came in with a massive recruitment shortfall. And in 100 days of Secretary Hegseth and President Trump's leadership, we now have people breaking down the doors to join our military. To the media assembled here, it's a really interesting question. Why has that happened? Completely aside from the fact that I think it's a good thing, or I think that President Trump deserves political credit for it, why did we go from a military where people didn't want to serve to now all of a sudden they do want to serve? That's a story you guys should cover, but compared to that, how much time have you instead focused on the fact that we deported an MS-13 gang member with a valid deportation order? And why is it that the press is so focused on the fake BS rather than what's really going on in the country? I think that what we've shown, sir, is that you can do a lot. You can do a lot in 100 days, but you've also unfortunately revealed that too much of the American media hasn't learned the lessons of the past 40 years.
Exactly right. The media should be crowing about that. Don't they want America to succeed? Shouldn't all the headlines be, look at our military recruitment, it's up again? I remember one of the Tom Clancy novels. I forget exactly which one it was. It was in the series where Jack Ryan becomes president of the United States and they blow up the Capitol during the State of the Union. That's how Jack Ryan becomes president. Sorry, like 30-year-old spoiler alert. But that one, they run an airplane into the Capitol. Yeah, actually, that was before 9/11, everybody. That book came out long before it, and people were wondering if Tom Clancy gave the terrorists ideas. But I remember there's a section of this story where one of the aircraft carriers they need to go hit back against the bad guys is out of commission. And they wanted to fool the bad guys into thinking it was still under repairs, and the media goes along with this idea that both these aircraft carriers are out of commission and photoshops in the aircraft carrier at Pearl Harbor and all the shots to fool the enemy. If we're at war with somebody right now, I'm worried about the media giving information to the enemy. That's what I'm worried. Who is the media advocating for right now? Terrorists, terrorist supporters, MS-13 gang members. The American public isn't falling for this, by the way. Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, apparently put out a declaration to all the Democrats today. Stop going down to El Salvador. It's making us look bad. You're staying in these five-star hotels. You're hanging out with gang members. And meanwhile, Americans are saying, why aren't you sticking up for us? Why aren't you advocating for getting our hostages back? Instead, you're going to stick up for the gang member. Oh, yeah, by the way, that MS-13 gang member, his own wife in the paperwork about the alleged domestic violence said her husband was a gang member. Explain that one to me for a minute. You guys still want to say this guy wasn't a gang member? That's who the Democrats are going to bat for. The Democrats are trying to take away your parental rights. The Democrats are trying to make sure you don't have access to your kids. The Democrats are trying to take away your money. The Democrats are trying to take away your public safety. And it's beyond insane, beyond insane. And here's something else, by the way. Here's something else. Do you know that Joe Biden's Department of Education was trying to silence anybody who would out the truth of what was actually going on? Secretary Marco Rubio revealed another shocking thing he found in what the State Department was up to under the Biden administration.
Something else we got out of the business of wasn't widely reported, or maybe it was. We had an office in the Department of State whose job it was to censor Americans. And by the way, I'm not going to say who it is. I'll leave it up to them. There's at least one person at this table today who had a dossier in that building of social media posts to identify them as purveyors of disinformation. We have these dossiers. We are going to be turning those over to these individuals.
Me or Elon? We can follow up with the media story.
Well, we are going to turn over these dossiers to the individuals, and they'll decide whether they want to disclose it or not. But just think about it. The Department of State of the United States had set up an office to monitor the social media posts and commentary of American citizens to identify them as vectors of disinformation, when we know that the best way to combat disinformation is freedom of speech and transparency. And so that's what we're going to be in the business of doing. We're not going to have an office that does that.
I love that little joke there with Musk. Wasn't me. With Vance, wasn't me. I actually sent a request to the Department of State, to the State Department, asking them who was on that list, because from what I hear, a lot of political commentators were on there as well, including people in our industry. Think for a second. How many of this? Did you hear about this story from the mainstream media anywhere? Did you hear this department was even in existence over there, the Ministry of Truth? You would not have known about this kind of stuff if not for shows like mine and conservative media. The mainstream media fell down on the job, and they're trying their best to distract from the successes of the Trump administration in the first 100 days. Yesterday, some of you got mad that I gave the Trump administration a B- in their accomplishments. And some of you didn't hear my caveat for giving them that grade. And I'm going to put it simply, put it plainly for everybody. I think the Trump administration is doing a great job. But some of the things the Trump administration is doing right now, we're not going to see the effects for a long, long time. So I'm going to compare this to my kids at school. In a good school, the teachers want you to succeed. The teachers want you to be successful. They don't want to fail you. Yes, we all had that evil witch of a teacher or that evil dude of a teacher who wanted to make sure we failed and was just mean and got their jollies off watching kids cry. We've all had those teachers before. I'm not talking about those. A good teacher wants the kid to be successful. And they say, you need to get your homework in. You didn't do well on this test? Let's do a retest. Let's make sure you know the information. Let's get you a tutor. Let's give you extra credit. Let's do this. Right now, some of the Trump stuff are incompletes. And it's not for lack of trying. They're moving very, very quickly. But for example, we don't know how this tariff stuff is going to shake out. And there's a lot of issues we'll discuss later in the show that are coming out because of it. We got to make sure they complete all these tasks. And the problem is, if we don't fix the economy soon enough, what's going to happen is the Democrats are going to take back Congress, and then the Trump agenda gets stuck in the mud. I say the B- because I want it to be an A+. I'm the teacher. I'm the teacher saying I want you to have an A+. But you got to fix the economy in order to do it. Is it going to take time? Absolutely. Am I giving them benefit of the doubt that they're going to do it? Absolutely. Because I don't want the Trump agenda to get stuck in the mud where all of a sudden we had the Trump agenda for 18 months and then it got stopped right there by the left. That's something we cannot have, because then you're just going to wait it out till we have another president. We don't know if it's going to be a Republican or a Democrat. I know we're all riding high right now thinking it's going to be J.D. Vance. If the economy does not turn around, all this great stuff that's happening, a Democrat is going to come in and undo all of it. We should all be that teacher that wants the kid to succeed. And I know Donald Trump is many years older than me, right? But we should want him to succeed. We should want this administration to succeed. Because a lot of my Democrat friends are saying, oh, I didn't know they were doing that. That's actually really good. I like this. I like that. At the end of the day, when the economy improves, that's when I will switch my grade over to an A-. And then when they follow through on all the stuff happening around the world of stopping these wars and getting our hostages back, that's when it's going to switch over to an A+. Donald Trump promised all that was going to happen, like the student who promised he's going to do all their homework. I hope it all comes to fruition. That's what I want to see. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, my friends, a crazy story, more scandal at City Hall. Yeah, we read those court documents about what's going on with Bruce Harrell. We'll give you the craziness when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Somebody really doesn't want Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell to get reelected. Now, mind you, he is the one who has caused all these problems. These are self-inflicted wounds he has done. But they just keep piling on and piling on and piling on. So right now we have a story for you that for some reason you're not going to get anywhere else.
Talk Radio 570 KVI, an Ari Hoffman Show exclusive.
Yesterday, we told you about what was going on with this sort of sex scandal. I don't know if I can call it that. Let's just call it salaciousness with regards to City Hall. Let's take you back in time for a minute. What was going on? We had Seattle Police Chief Adrian Diaz. He was alleged to be having an affair with Jamie Tompkins, who was hired to do stuff for the Seattle Police Department, who used to be an anchor over on Fox 13. What happens is that they accuse these two of having an affair. Diaz gets removed from his position, eventually gets dismissed from the SPD. Jamie Tompkins is basically tarred and feathered in public approval, and they're both out of SPD. And Mayor Bruce Harrell moves on with his life. He gets Sue Rohr as the interim director. Then they get this guy Barnes to be the Seattle police chief. Well, yesterday we were talking about how Jamie Tompkins filed a lawsuit or sent a letter to Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell's office and the city of Seattle now saying she wants $3 million in defamation because none of this stuff ever happened. We went through this thing from the media eye, and I didn't have a chance to read the documents yet, but there is a big piece of these documents that, for some reason, I didn't see in a lot of the media reporting on this story, and a lot of people were covering the story. They left out a little section of this. I'm going to read from the documents themselves, and I want to thank my friend Jonathan Cho, who has been tag teaming this story with me. So, here we go. This is from Diaz's perspective. In June of 2023, you met with Diaz about his, they said this to Harrell. You met with Diaz about his alleged affair with Tompkins. You told him that you weren't worried about the rumor and that it was completely all right if he had slept with her. Diaz told you he had not slept with Tompkins and that it wouldn't have been all right if he had. According to these documents, which Tompkins sent to the mayor's office saying it was defamation, you, a.k.a. Bruce Harrell, responded that you would, quote-unquote, do Tompkins, and it's fine. Diaz replied that it wasn't fine. Does this remind anybody of any other story we've had involving a politician? Remember the locker room talk about Donald Trump grabbing something by the something? You remember that? Remember that whole scandal? I remember the left going bonkers crazy about that. Here, it's alleged that the mayor of Seattle was talking about it's okay, having this affair or whatever, that he would do her too. Can you imagine if a Republican did this? It would be scorched earth on Republicans across the city, across the state. They would never, ever, ever, the media would never let something like that fly. This is in the documents that Tompkins attorneys sent to Seattle, sent to Bruce Harrell. That should be the headline. Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell is talking about this woman in an inappropriate way. That should be the headline. Did you see this anywhere else in any of the media? Because I saw a lot of outlets covering this thing. Imagine if it was Trump who said, yes, I like that girl. I would do her too. Imagine if it was that. The media would go bonkers crazy. And they just mostly completely skipped over this. Now, this story gets even crazier. And hopefully tonight, me and Jonathan Cho are going to be revealing on X more to this story because it gets even crazier. Want a little sneak peek about this? It involves something from Star Wars. Oh, you think I'm kidding? Yes, it actually involves an Ewok. This crazy story involves an Ewok. I'm not going to give away the rest of it, but yes, it does involve an Ewok, which is bonkers crazy. Apparently, the love letter that was the excuse for getting rid of these two, the alleged love letter, was written on a card which had an Ewok on the cover. Okay, guys, that's something you give your 5-year-old who likes Star Wars. That's not something you give anything when you're adults, but there's a lot more to that. There's a lot more of this story, and hopefully Jonathan Cho and I will have more out on this story tonight. So make sure you're following me and Jonathan Cho. Me, you can get me at The Hofffather over on X, Ari Hoffman Official on Facebook and Instagram, and Jonathan Cho, you can get a Cho Show over on X. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, Tim Walz says he is the code talker for white men. Apparently, we need a code breaker to understand what the hell he's even talking about. We'll give you the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. So Tim Walz is clearly having some kind of trying to remain relevant moment. So he was being interviewed about why he got picked as Kamala Harris's vice presidential candidate. And his answer is bizarre, absolutely bizarre. You might say I need a decoder to try and figure out what he is actually saying. Give a listen.
Yes, I said the choice to be on this ticket, the privilege of being on it. When you sign up for this, I'm a team player. I'm with it. And there's folks that I recognize are smarter than me. They analyze this. You put your input in. Running a campaign that had never been run before, 100 days, in the situation we were at, running against a very unusual opponent on the other side. Mm-hmm. And look, my job was to do it. Look, I knew I was on the ticket. I would argue because we did a lot of amazing progressive things in Minnesota that improved people's lives. But I also was on the ticket, quite honestly, because I could code talk to white guys watching football, fixing their truck, doing that I could put them at ease. I was the permission structure to say, look, you can do this and vote for this. And you look across those swing states, with the exception of Minnesota, we didn't get enough of those votes.
But you could be.
Hang on a second. He was the code talker for white guys? Mike, you know more about the foosball than I do. I do not pretend to know about the foosball, and when I do, I look like a dum-dum.
That's for sure.
I have stopped mentioning the foosball. But even I know what a pick six is. And wasn't he the one who screwed that up, and he claims he was a football coach?
Yes.
Okay. Then.
Real dummy.
Real dummy. The gun thing. I know what I know about the guns that I own. I have proven my ignorance about the guns that I don't. Just the other day, Mike and young Zach were making fun of me about a big error I made because there's a gun I want that I don't own that I knew very little about, and they were making fun of my ignorance because I didn't know the difference basically between 9mm and 50 caliber. See, there's me exposing my ignorance right there.
That's
and
all the same.
It was
It's all bullets.
well-deserved.
It's all bullets.
Well-deserved mockery. Well-deserved, okay? So, would you pick me to go out there and talk to the, I don't know, the NRA or something? Probably not.
no?
Okay. But Tim Walz, who clearly has never held a shotgun before in his life. All right, time out. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. The first time I was given a shotgun to fire, the first time, I'm like, hell yeah, I can do this. They do this in movies. Oh my God. I almost blew a hole in the ceiling of the shooting range because nobody prepared me for it. And I almost got kicked out of the range. It was bad. It was really, really bad. You're not going to put me out there with the shotgun. Am I very good with my 9mm? Absolutely. I am deadly with my Banshee, with my Glock, with my PPQ. I am great with all that stuff, all right? The shotgun, that's a little bit too much gun for me. Do you remember Tim Walz? What was he, duck hunting? The guy would have been better off playing Nintendo because then at least none of us have ever actually hit a duck in Duck Hunt. You can't actually do it with the home Duck Hunt. You can do it with the arcade one. The arcade one, you can actually hit some stuff. But whoever designed that gun, we all just got so frustrated with that Super Nintendo game that we would just try and shoot the dog. Shoot the dog who's laughing at you all the time. And you couldn't shoot the duck and you couldn't shoot the dog. But you send out Tim Walz with that shotgun, he looked like a complete fool. He looked like a complete imbecile. I'm surprised he knew which direction it went. And you know what? It didn't even look like that. He's the code talker for white men. First of all, that movie sucked. And I assume the only reason he knows that terminology is because of that. Because you think he learned about that in the military? Should we rehash his military record? Should we really go over that? Do you think Tim Walz actually knows the story of the code talkers in World War II? That was one of the worst war movies I've ever seen. I'm sorry. I was rooting for it. I love Nicolas Cage. It seemed interesting. I like new stories. It was just done badly. It was not good. Not good at all. But anywho, Tim Walz is going to speak to the white guys. You know, I'm convinced more and more and more. They wanted Trump to win, the Democrats. Yeah, they piled all this money at Kamala. They got all this money from rich celebrities. But for them, it doesn't matter. They'll just get the same money next time because they know those same celebrities will give them the money next time also. They wanted Trump to win because then they could spend 4 years running against him. I think that Tim Walz was actually a plant to deliver Donald Trump the election. Now, mind you, I don't know who came up with that plan, or maybe I'm giving too much credit. Maybe I'm giving way too much credit because you know what? These dum-dums keep screwing up. You would think they would be hitting Trump on the economy. But instead, no, what are they doing? They're advocating for drug dealers. They're advocating for MS-13 gang members or Tren de Aragua or Hamas members or people who sympathize with Hamas. That's what they're doing. Or they're holding sit-in sing-alongs on the steps of the Capitol. Okay. On Sunday, Cory Booker and Hakeem Jeffries, Spartacus himself, that's right, Cory Booker, they're on the steps of the Capitol having a, we're not going to move to bring awareness about Trump. Wow, guys, you're really accomplishing so much by sitting on the steps of the Capitol. You know what? I took the Capitol tour while I was in D.C. By the way, the Capitol tour, one of the most boring tours in D.C. So I took the photo op tour. Have you ever heard of the photo op tour? The photo op tour, they take you up into the rotunda for 15 minutes. You take pictures, you go back downstairs. That is the photo op tour. Worked great for me. I had half an hour to kill. This worked out perfectly for me. But I'm thinking to myself, so Hakeem Jeffries just sat on the front steps and thought people would come hang out with him. Do you know the lunatics they attracted? I'm convinced all these people are just frustrated theater kids.
If we build this world from love, yada-da-da-da, yada-da-da, then God will build this world from love.
Okay. I'm trying not to laugh at that person who calls themselves a rabbi with the trans tallis. I'm very confused by all that, whatever's going on the steps. Are you making anybody's lives better by sitting there on the steps? No. It's all for PR. That's all it is. These guys do not understand that right now, if you want to hit Trump on the economy, hit him on the economy. You should be talking about the small business owners that are having problems because their product's made in China and what it's doing to them here. They're not doing that. They're going after the MS-13 gang members saying, yay, we love the gang members. Yay, we love the Hamasniks. You guys are really terrible at this. So what do you think? Do you think that Tim Walz was picked intentionally, hoping that Trump would win, or going, she has no chance anyway, who can we sacrifice here? Because he's not a popular governor, not at all. Do you think that's why he was picked? Or do you think they actually thought he had a chance, and this is the guy that they basically pulled from obscurity who could help Kamala win? Let me know what you think. 206-421-5757 for calls or text. 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, the results out of the Canadian election have been finalized, and they're not good for us. We're going to dive into these when we come back and what it means for trade policies and everything else. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Some of you are going to get very mad at me about this next segment, and I'm going to give you the phone number right off the top, 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757 for calls or texts. Mark Carney is going to be the next Prime Minister of Canada. This guy is just like Justin Trudeau. In fact, I'd say worse, because Justin Trudeau just ignored a lot of the stuff going on in Canada. This guy helps the anti-Semites. This guy helps the radical left. You thought Justin Trudeau is bad? You ain't seen nothing yet. It's fascinating to me that MAGA is trying to blame Pierre Poilievre for him losing this election, saying he wasn't conservative enough. Anybody who thinks that does not understand Canada at all. Let me give you an example. Canada, we may share a continent. We are not alike, us and the Canadians. They are much more left-leaning than us. They are more into their socialized stuff than us. Their conservatives are more like, how do I put this? I'd say lefty Democrats, not leftist Democrats. I wouldn't even say old school liberals. They're in between old school liberals and the lefties now. That's what I'd say the Canadians are. Now, also, the Canadians are very proud of being Canadian. We make fun of them a lot, and they deserve it, because Canada is Canada. But at the same time, they don't like that. So imagine for a second, if you have a guy who's president of the United States talking about making Canada the 51st state. Now, here's something else. If you make Canada the 51st state, you get millions of people who are now Democratic voters. They're not all of a sudden going to become Americans and become people who are members of the Republican Party. They're not. So if they actually became the 51st state, and let's be real, each province would probably become its own state. Canada would not become, one giant state. If that actually happened, Republicans would never win another election again. So saying we want them to be the 51st state, we want them to be the 51st state, it's funny, it's entertaining, it ticked people off. How do I know this? Just look at the polls. Justin Trudeau had to step down from being prime minister. His polling was so bad. People hated him so much. This is the guy who, his COVID stuff was even more insane than Joe Biden's COVID stuff, more insane than Jay Inslee's COVID stuff. He had to step down. The economy was tanking. Everybody wasn't happy. Pierre Poilievre, he was the conservative guy. His numbers were through the roof, sky high. Trump gets elected. Tariffs, they didn't take those well at all, especially given the fact that the tariff deal that had been negotiated in North America was actually one that was negotiated by Trump. So between the tariffs and between the insults and everything else, the Canadians went looking for somebody who could fight with Trump. And they found that in Mark Carney. And they supported this guy. And it didn't help at all that Trump was also saying things like this while insulting Pierre Poilievre.
Going to make them more hostile to us and possibly
I'd rather deal with a liberal than a
for China closer to Canada, and that would really put us in a bind.
The conservative that's running is stupidly no friend of mine. I don't know him, but he said negative things. So when he says negative things, I couldn't care less. I think it's easier to deal actually with a liberal.
So you forced Poilievre to go to the left as opposed to go to the right. And by the way, if he had gone to the right, he would have gotten clobbered worse. And that's what happened with this election. You disagree with me? You agree with me? You give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Got time for a quick call. Paul, what's going on? Paul from Bonnie Lake. What's up, man?
Thank you for taking my call, Larry. John Anderson, Jimmy Carter. Put those two together, and you have Tim Walz. They actually believe this nonsense. They are literal fools, and he is so self-righteous. Reminds me specifically Anderson and Carter. That's what you have.
Yeah, and also here's something else. Think about this. Everybody else who's a real candidate for 2028 is keeping their powder dry right now. You're not hearing from Newsom right now on this kind of stuff. They're smart. They're letting fools like Tim Walz burn themselves out because then Newsom can come along and be, I'm the savior of the Democrat Party. Good point, Paul. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, more of your calls, more of your texts, and more of the Trump administration riding to the rescue of Washington. We'll tell you all about what else they're up to when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, RFK Jr. is going after our junk food, and I'm actually surprisingly more than okay with parts of this. We'll tell you what happened in the cabinet room today, but before we get to any of that, got some more breaking news for you right now.
Talk Radio 570 KVI, breaking news on the Ari Hoffman Show.
I got this from the Seattle Department of Transportation, and this did not come to my ari@kvi.com email. This came to my personal email. Why? It says so at the top. You're getting this email because you submitted a street use permit application. That means years ago, when I submitted an application to use a city right-of-way for truck storage in Georgetown, I am getting a May Day events advisory. This is not an application I have right now. I don't even own the building that this application was for. We haven't owned the building in 4-5 years now at this point. I am getting this because I am on their list for a street use permit in Georgetown. And I'm getting a May Day advisory for something in Capitol Hill.
Not to be confused with that time that you moved those eco blocks. I mean, allegedly, Ari Hoffman had nothing to do with it.
I don't know what you're talking about. Those things just appeared by themselves. They grew little legs. Mike, clearly you are not on the same stuff the rest of us are here in Seattle. Mike's the only sober one here. That's right. We're riding the Green Dragon, and all of a sudden those eco blocks be growing legs and walking down the street. Now, let me tell you what's going on. I'm reading from their email. May Day events advisory. May Day's tomorrow. May 1st is May Day. You know, Communist Day. Sorry, I meant Socialist Day. No, I'm sorry, I meant Marxist Day. That's where it is, right? Where the psychos come out to play. What's happening? Tomorrow, May 1st, 2025, a May Day rally and march are planned on Capitol Hill. The rally begins at 12 noon in Cal Anderson Park, and a 10 a.m. event at Seattle Central College will lead into it. While the exact march route is unconfirmed, it may either start and end at Cal Anderson Park, or take a route leading to locations such as Westlake Park, the courthouse, or the federal building. Time out. You're the Seattle Department of Transportation. If somebody wants a street use permit, they need to apply for one for these kind of parades. You can't just close the streets. Like Ari Hoffman, who wanted to use a little bit of a right-of-way to put trucks on that we all thought was my property until they said, no, it's not. So wait a second. Is this a permitted or unpermitted march? My guess is it's unpermitted. Otherwise, you guys would know exactly where they're going. Why don't you know where they're going? And here's something else. Why aren't you doing anything to stop it? There's freedom of speech. There's not freedom to block traffic. There's freedom to protest. There's not freedom to trap people on freeways. For many people, May Day is a time to peacefully exercise their First Amendment rights. We fully support this. While past events have sometimes resulted in property damage, I'm sorry, that's the nice way of saying rioting? Is that what you're going with right now? Sometimes resulted in property damage? We don't have any reason to expect illegal activity this year. Wait a second. You don't even know the parade route. It's illegal to block streets. It's illegal to block transit. It's illegal to shut down transit stations. This sure sounds like illegal activity, or have you guys just moved the goalpost on what you define as illegal? Even so, we encourage you to take sensible precautions and stay aware to help keep the day safe and respectful. Whoa! Whoa, whoa, whoa. So it's our fault the psychos want to shut down the streets? We have to be safe and respectful? Oh, this gets so much better. Ready? If you're located in Capitol Hill or downtown, we recommend taking these steps to secure your job sites, sidewalk cafes, and other outdoor operations after business hours tomorrow. Whoa! If you're not expecting illegal activity, then why should anybody have to secure anything? It should just be walk on by. You know, Mike knows this. I was part of plenty of pro-Israel rallies over the last 18 months and marches. You know what we never did? Never blocked any streets. You know what we never did? Broke into any job sites. We never smashed in any Starbucks windows or anything like that. So if no illegal activity is being planned, why does anybody need to secure anything? For actual peaceful protest? There goes the protest. What are they protesting? Can I have a flyer? Or, ugh. That's your two reactions, right? That's really it. This is clearly not a peaceful protest. As soon as we're done with the segment, I'm going over on the Instagram where these dum-dums always post their intentions, and I will find this in 5 minutes, guaranteed. Here's what else they say. You tell me if this sounds like something you do for a peaceful protest. To help protect against potential risks while respecting the peaceful nature of the event. So, for the peaceful nature of the event, they recommend secure outdoor items. Remove or secure chairs, tables, umbrellas, signs, construction material, tools, and anything at risk of being moved or damaged. Oh, for the peaceful protest. Do you know what I remember seeing? I remember during the autonomous zone. I saw these Looney Tunes picking up the giant planters in front of apartment buildings. I don't mean the ones that are like circular that have one little tree in them. I mean the giant rectangle things that require 8 guys to pick them up to use as barricades. Should we secure those too? Ensure your permit areas are clear and items are well secured before leaving for the day. Yes, this sounds very, very peaceful. Wait, it gets better. Plan ahead for possible disruptions. Be aware that unexpected traffic or street closures may occur throughout the day because the march route is unconfirmed. Keep vehicles and equipment away from Cal Anderson Park and likely routes to reduce the risk of inconvenience. You don't even know what direction they're going in. I want everybody to be aware for all things at all times. Anything can happen. Oh, which way did he go? He went that way. Report vandalism or harmful behavior by calling 911. Whoa, 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 whoa. We don't expect illegal activity, but secure all your stuff and report vandalism and harmful behavior by calling 911. Okay, this is insane. Seattle has officially been turned over to the lunatics. You know what this email should have said? The police will be securing the area. If you protest, that's fine. If you block traffic, that's illegal, and you will be arrested. And that's not what they're saying. That's not what they're saying at all. In the past, you might remember some iconic moments from May Day protests, such as the guy wearing the Nike sneakers kicking in the window of the Nike store. That was one of my absolute favorites from Seattle May Day protests. Why is it that the Day for Workers' Rights, you want to go smash the jobs of common workers? You want to go destroy their places of business? Can anybody explain that one to me? What does socialism have to do with destroying business? Sorry, I almost said that out loud without cracking a smile. I'm sorry. What does communism and Marxism have to do with destroying business? Oh, right, exactly. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. But we live in the People's Republic of Washington. We live in Seattle, Stan. Anybody surprised by this? Also, Mike, last year, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't last year like a big nothing burger for May Day? I don't remember anything happening.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, we were talking about this during the news when this broke. I think over like the last 2 years, if not the last 3 years, the decline in May Day protest has certainly dropped off. Now, that's an interesting shift given that Seattle's May Day protests for a time was like a tourist attraction for regional activists. Like people would like pack up their hippie bus and travel and come to Seattle to break our windows because they don't want to break their own windows or whatever.
Yes. I'm trying to log into my Instagram right now so I can see what's actually going on their pages because I am really curious which lunatic group is behind this whole mess. Guaranteed it's one of the usual suspects. Is it BLM? Is it Antifa? I'm just kind of wondering which group is actually behind it this time. I'm sure I'll do a little investigating during the break. We'll find out how it is.
I would also say, though, in citing that pattern, causation or causality with the emphasis of police presence in the downtown core, I think that's been a deterrent. I think we're far away from the George Floyd riots and all the stuff that was happening during COVID, all the BLM stuff. And I think that was a turning point, to coin a phrase there, in how this that's when we kind of saw the end of kind of like the activist tourism. What you got, Ari? You got breaking news there.
Oh, I got it. Okay, sorry. I wasn't ignoring you, Mike.
No, that's fine.
Okay, here we go.
I was stalling while you were
I know you were.
I
know you were. It's cool.
Good,
I love you for that. All right, here we go. Ready? Apparently today there is a national online rally.
Ooh, online rally.
Online
We're
rally.
We're going to do it on Zoom.
They're going to throw their keyboards on the ground, right? The keyboard warriors. Exactly. 100 days of Trump, 100 days of resistance. All out for May Day. Yay. Power to the people. Oh, here we go. Here we go. I got it now. I got it now. May 1st, 5/1, 11:45 a.m. at Cal Anderson Fountain. Oh, are we going to drown ourselves in the fountain like what's his face? Travis Berge.
Oh,
the prolific offender who killed his
got
girlfriend.
that guy first.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
But also, though, sorry, I know you got stuff there, Ari.
Oh,
but
it's fine.
Look at the time, though. It's like, what'd you say? It's like
11:45 in the morning.
11:45 after you get to sleep in. Maybe you do a little wake and bake. You know, rip some hippie bong rips in your freaking ayahuasca tent or whatever, and then casually make your way out to the park in the middle of the day.
Exactly.
Can't get up too early in the morning.
Well, this goes back to what I always say.
Get a job.
Right. This goes back to what I always say, right? You want like real people, real jobs. You go to a red city, a red state. You want people who make the best cup of coffee because they will always be baristas. You go to a blue city, a blue state. That is where you get a good cup of coffee. You want a well-managed city? Don't go to a blue city. You go to a red one. You want a good cup of coffee? You want a well-made cup of coffee? Then you go to a blue city. Okay. So May 1st at 11:45 a.m. at Cal Anderson Fountain, the anti-imperialist May Day contingent. Okay. Anti-imperialist. Just making sure I got that. Mike, should we do an over-under with our listeners? This is the first flyer I found.
Yes.
What always happens with this is all these dormant Twitter accounts go active. All these dormant Instagram accounts go active. So soon we'll be seeing all out for Palestine. Then we'll be seeing all out against Trump. All out. It'll be every lunatic group, so much so that they won't even know what they're protesting. And they'll be out in force at Cal Anderson Park. All right, here's something else. So I want to know how many groups, under, over, without going over, how many groups do you think are going to be at this thing? I'm going to say, just off the top of my head, it's not on the flyer. There's only one group on this flyer. I bet that means there's other flyers. Wait, is there a list of the other groups here? The International Workers' Day, Mobilizing Historical Victories Labor Movement, blah, 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 blah. Up, here we go. Okay, here we go. All right, join along with labor, student, migrant, and other movements. Oh, boo, that's all we get. So,
Lame.
Under, over, how many groups do you think are going to be involved in this?
I was going to say 4.
4 groups.
I think 4.
I think you are lowballing it, but I see what you're doing. You're close to the $1
I'm
round.
playing the prices right.
Okay, I'm going to say
$1.
I'm going to say 8 groups in advance.
Yeah.
Unknown amount actually at the thing. Okay, that's what I'm going with for this lunacy that's going to happen tomorrow. Second, you guys let us know what you think. How many groups? 206-421-5757. You text us. Here's the other thing. It starts at 11:45 a.m. Are they still going to be going when we come on air? Better question, are they still going to be going during rush hour home? Because this, to me, reeks of, well, we're going to start at Cal Anderson Park, and we're going to do 2 hours of speeches and make our little signs and have our little protest, and then we're going to I-5, and then we're going to downtown, and then we're going somewhere else. So, to me, this reeks of that's what's going to happen, right? Why do you think they need their beauty sleep? They plan on going all night long. That would be my guess. Let me know what you think. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from our friend Transit Joe. Transit Joe, are you going to be participating in this craziness tomorrow?
Well, I was asked to take photos for a union on my way home from the Sound Transit special board meeting on CEO expectations, and that's the limit of my participation because, quite frankly, Breger, I'm still pissed off that Donnie Trump decided in all his damn wisdom to interfere in the Canadian election so we could be stuck with a guy who wants to tax airline flights and this Carney clown. And I'll tell you something else, too, while I'm getting warmed up and fired up. These idiots who are so addicted to taxes, man, I swear we should have these people in a treatment facility for their addiction to taxing people who just want to fly. I mean, come on, man.
Come on, man. Joe, I think by the end of the Trump administration, we might get you to vote for J.D. Vance. I think that might actually happen. Joe, appreciate the call.
I don't think I'll vote for him, but I think I will vote for you. But I got to tell you, Trump, like I said yesterday, Trump, to get from a B-, C+ to an A on fighting anti-Semitism, he needs to take the gloves off with University of Washington or allow us citizens to take the law in our own hands and then hand out pardons after we deal with the enemy.
Okay. Whoa. Hang on. You're going to a different direction there, Joe, but I appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. This one from the 360. There will be one group. There will be one group of idiots. That's excellent from the 360. Very, very good. What else we got here? Man, you guys are blowing up the text line.
My dude Dennis has the text of the day. May Day is supposed to be a day to celebrate spring.
That's a good one here. Oh, Mike, here, Richard liked your wake and bake comment. He liked that one a lot. That's very good. What else we got here? We're going to talk about Pakistan and India anytime soon. Surprised the mainstream media hasn't covered that yet. 425, who just said that. Guys, we did like half an hour on that on Friday. Go look up Friday's episode over at kvi.com. It's all there. This one from Jeff in Kent. He says, yes, they'll be going until after rush hour. He also said earlier in the show when we were talking about your boy Tim Walsh, Mike, he says here, I know from relatives in Minnesota, they don't love him. So I like the way you phrase that, though, Jeff. That's a good one here. Dude in BC, Mayday. Mayday, the U.S. may take us. LOL, says the guy in BC. Like that. Very, very good. He says, dazed and confused country. Now it's called Carneyville. Yeah, very good. That's exactly what's happening. But here's something else. This is a real test for our governor, Bob Ferguson. Mike, I don't think he's had a single riot yet, has he? Does he call out the National Guard, or does he just let it burn like Inslee does and then sends in the National Guard unarmed later? This is a guy who's trying to say he's in favor of law and order. If he lets a bunch of lunatics burn down Seattle or shut down traffic on I-5, that goes right out the window. He's done with moderate land. I mean, I would say he was a long time ago.
I'm going to part ways with you ever so slightly. Hear me out. I have a bold prediction. I think Turd Ferguson is actually going to crack down and actually say, like, send the guard, enough of this. Like, as soon as these nut bars start making like they're going anywhere towards a freeway, it's like, no. Because, like, I think at a time, especially after the session, after the disastrous new budget, I think the turd is trying to find some way to find some kind of moderate street cred. How about a little law and order to get Ari and Mike to shut the heck up for a sec?
Exactly.
I think that's a bold strategy, and I think that is another way for Bob Ferguson to kind of part ways with the Inslee way of looking at things, because he's tried to say that he's not Jay Inslee. This would be a great way to prove it.
So, tell you what, we're going to have the Ari Mike face-off, okay?
I like it.
Mike,
you might even say it's friendly.
There you go. Mike is going to say that Turd Ferguson is going to crack down. So, in that case, we call him Bob. Okay?
I like it.
We're going to have Bob versus Turd, okay? This is what we're going to do. So on the text line, I
can already smell Ari like typing on the chat GPT, trying to like create an image for this title fight.
I don't want an image for that. God knows what chat GPT would come up with.
Yes.
Okay, so Mike says he's going to crack down. I say it's going to be more of the same. Now, if you agree with Mike, you call him Bob, and you just text Bob to the text line, 206-421-5757. If you think this is going to be a bleep show, then you just text the word turd to 206-421-5757. You let us know which direction you think this is going to go down tomorrow. 206-421-5757. That's 5757. When we come back, my friends, how bad was the session at the Washington State Legislature? Representative Andrew Barkis is going to be here and also explain his vote on the transportation package. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. My friends, we are still dealing with the fallout from how bad this new budget that the Washington State Legislature passed. The amount of taxes is absolutely insane, and it's really just because of their out-of-control spending. Now, the good news is we have good relationships with a lot of people in Olympia, and even our friends, we sometimes disagree with their votes or the policies they supported, but that's okay, because that's why we have this show, so we give a platform to people we disagree with and hash out these disagreements, and from time to time, my mind gets changed. I don't think it's going to be in this case, but we're more than happy to have the discussion anyway. Joining us now to discuss on the KVI studio line, Representative Andrew Barkis. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Hey, Ari, good afternoon, and thank you so much for the opportunity to always visit with you and discuss, and maybe I'll change your mind and at least give you and your listeners some perspective of how incredibly bad this session was that we just completed.
Okay, so let's start with how bad it was. Is there any good news in this thing at all? Because the only good news I see is, well, they didn't get to pass some of the worst of the worst. I don't see any good news in this at all.
It's hard to find. I mean, I'll tell you a little tiny piece of good news on the housing front. Bill I've been working on for 3 years, my lot split bill, which will actually create supply and help with the housing crisis issue, passed in the last couple hours of the session, which was pretty amazing. And there were some other good policies that were done by my colleagues, but, the focal point, of course, was the budgets. A lot of bad policy around Second Amendment, a lot of bad policy, of course, the Parental Bill of Rights. I mean, you name it, you've been talking about it. You've been a voice out there in the wilderness screaming it out there. And thank you for getting the word out because, people did participate this year and let their voices be heard too. But, man, I tell you, this was my 9th year. I can't remember how many sessions, but it will go down as the worst one I've ever experienced.
So you and I both come from the real estate world, and you gave a very impassioned speech talking about how bad this rent control insanity is going to be on the floor. Now, from my perspective, a few things are going to happen. One, people are going to sell their houses, which are rental units, and those won't be around anymore because single families will buy the things. But on top of that, any landlord who's got half a brain, as if it wasn't bad enough from before COVID, they're going to do a 7 to 10% increase every single year, every single time it comes up for renewal, because they have no choice, because they have to keep up with inflation. And some years it'll be more, some years it'll be less, but they can't roll the dice. And how can the Democrats not see this? They just wanted rent control that bad to say they passed it?
Yeah, well, you heard my speech, and I said it very clearly. When you have policy steeped in ideology and devoid of data, that's what you get. And that's all this was. This was their priority. They weren't going to listen to the arguments against it. They weren't going to listen to the common sense, to the data, to everything we've been saying that will hurt supply, that will hurt development, and ultimately will hurt tenants, because you're right. The only predictability tenants are going to get is an increase of rent up to that cap every single time. And it's just, it is unbelievable that, as I said at the end, well, congratulations, you did it, right? I mean, you can really hang your hat on that one. It was such a bad piece of policy, and it is indicative, Ari, of the session. It was the first piece of policy introduced this session. It was the first one in committee. It went through the whole process. In the last day, in the last couple hours, they passed it. And so, yes, from my perspective, being in the business, we're going to get hit double duty because, first of all, the business is going to get hit with higher taxes, B&O taxes and everything else just to run my business. Secondly, yes, I've got to save clients. I've got to save housing providers and supply by, working with my owners that we manage and provide them the services to navigate through this. And we've already seen a huge sell-off over the last couple of years just in anticipation. That one big developer we were talking to said if this passes, they are reevaluating their next phase of development on thousands of units of multifamily housing in the Seattle-Puget Sound region. It's no joke, and again, we've seen it all over the country. We saw the results in Minneapolis. We'll be back in a year or whenever, and they'll be going back and saying, oh, well, gosh, we made a mistake there. We need to make some adjustments. But, and we had negotiated good solutions through the Senate. We had amendments dropped in there. They stripped everything out in the end.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, just from my own family experience, so we do mostly commercial real estate, but we've been selling everything in this area because we can't roll the dice around here anymore. We've been investing elsewhere. And the people in my family who do residential stuff, they go, I don't want to be a landlord in Seattle anymore, and they're selling their stuff. So even before all this, people were getting out, and now even more are going to get out of it. So we agree on that. We're in lockstep on that. We know how bad this is going to be. Something we don't agree on is going to be the transportation budget. Now, to pay for this, they're spiking the gas taxes. And the question I have, like many other Washingtonians, is, okay, where'd all the money go we've been paying this whole time? And the money from the Climate Commitment Act, they say, oh, it can't be spent on this, it can't be spent on that. It seems like that's just a giant grift. That added 50 cents to our taxes last year. So now you've got another 6 cents on top of it. It's going to be even more in the long run. What happened to all the money? Somehow we paid for roads for years before any of this, and the money didn't actually go to roads. So where did it all go wrong? Because I don't think we should have raised the taxes, and I want to know where all that money went.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you I've had a front row seat for the last 7 years as the ranking member on transportation. And so I've written this budget, along with the chair. And I want to start by saying the difference in crafting this budget is a Republican, myself and my team, are part of the conversation from day one. We are not locked out like the operating budget where we have no say in what goes on. So my voice, the Republican, a conservative voice, a fiscal voice is heard during that process. So that is reflective in this budget. Now, what we've seen, Ari, over the last several years is increasing cost. It's in the spending, but it's in the cost. The cost drivers, the project costs are going through the roof. And I'll tell you why. Number one, we are seeing unbelievable amounts of regulatory increases from everything from all the policies that have been put in, which are driving up the cost of completing these projects. Number two, you've got Sound Transit building the light rail megathon there in the Puget Sound region, sucking every bit of resources and taxation and monetary out of the area and making it incredibly competitive when it comes to bids. We're not seeing 3 or 4 bids. We're seeing 1 or 2 bids on these major projects. So over the last couple of years, projects went up 20, 30, 40, 60%, sometimes even higher than that. And it shot a hole in our budget. We could not complete and stay on task with the projects at hand that are critical throughout the state, let alone fund the rest of the stuff that we were doing. So you're right. I have argued, and I had legislation the last couple of years to use the Climate Commitment Act money to change the rules and the law so that we could use that money towards transportation and in a myriad of different ways, and use the existing resources by cutting back, scaling back, reprioritizing, doing all that. Some of that is reflective in this budget. And unfortunately, whatever the revenue that we had was not significant to keep things moving forward. So I worked on that budget from day one. I worked it all the way through. I voted against it when it came out of committee because it wasn't fiscally conservative enough. I voted for it the first time because it was a better budget than what the Senate was proposing, which was proposing spending even more, Ari, another $5 billion in bonding. And the final product did have the revenues in there, but I was able to help appropriate those revenues. And I voted no against all the taxes that were proposed, including the gas tax, coming back and saying, look, we got to keep looking at the existing revenues that we have. But also, I felt, Ari, that it's so important that we keep these projects moving and that we keep this economic. I had more input from projects in Lewis County and Highway 12 and Eastern Washington and all the different things that said, if these projects stop, we're losing, development and housing and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of revenue and jobs and all that stuff. So you had to balance that out, and it was one of the most difficult things I've ever done to do that. But that's why I voted yes in the final product, along with many of my colleagues, because not supporting those taxes, but supporting keeping Washington moving. The other piece is,
but there's one question here. Hang on a second. There's just one question here. Sorry to interrupt. But if you are now voting to increase the taxes, or rather they're moving ahead with increasing the taxes, does that mean the costs are going to go up again, and not just the fuel cost of all the vehicles that are doing this construction, but any supplies that come in on that, which means next time around it's going to be even more expensive because of the very tax that's supposed to be compensating for how expensive it got. So it seems like this is going to be a never-ending cycle now.
Well, I'll tell you what the next cycle is, and that is, it is true. The gas tax is a declining revenue source, and it's the only thing outside of the climate commitment, and we can talk about both of our opinions on that. But the only things that pay for transportation and keep the entire system moving is the gas tax and fees. That's what it is. And that revenue source of the gas tax is declining. So we've been looking at a myriad of things, from the road usage charge, which is controversial, to one that I actually thought was a better way of doing this, which was a much more even spread of it, was a highway user fee, which we did propose. The Senate did not like the idea, and instead they had, another 10 different taxes and fees that they did to compensate for the loss. So we're going to have to go back and look at the entirety of how we fund transportation. You've seen the tolls come in. Tolls are in place to fund specific projects. It's expensive. I mean, it is. There's no doubt about it. Until we get a huge amount of reform, until we get different aspects within contracting and labor and some of the things that we just don't have control over, we have to find a way to do this. And, and the other thing I was going to say is that the transportation budget is also state patrol. And, we've talked about this, keeping, recruiting and paying for and making sure we rebuild the troops and all the things that we need. All that's part of the transportation budget. So it's a complicated situation. And what I said in the day is I said, look, my job as the ranking member is to bring a perspective from my caucus, right? A fiscal perspective, and to do everything I can to guide that budget development in the best way to spend the valuable resources that we're taxing our citizens for. And so the budget is appropriating those funds. And I think, personally, and many have said, and, I'm proud of the work that got us to where this point is. It's a better budget than what was being crafted in the Senate and how it all came together. But we're not done. I mean, we're going to have to come back in 6 months and do the supplemental and readjust. And we're already hearing that even the stuff we did on certain projects, it's not enough. It's not going to be enough. And so, at some point, I'm going to keep pushing for that Climate Commitment Act, aspect to redirect those funds. I'm going to keep pushing to redirect. Was successful in redirecting about $100 million out of what was going towards transit and other things back into the budget to be used on other things that I thought were more important. But, again, I'm in the minority and I can only do so much.
Well, then, can I ask for a commitment from you? Can I ask for a commitment from you for something else then? I would love to know what we're actually spending the money on. And I think that transparency is sunlight is the best disinfectant, as they say.
Sure.
I think that a lot of people like me will look at this and say, where did all the money go? That's number one. And what the hell are we spending it on now? So, for example, I assume a lot of these organizations have training programs that have DEI part of it, and we're paying for those instructors to come in.
I'm sure.
Right.
Yep.
So the question is, the stuff we found with Washington Doge, how much money are we spending by the Washington State Legislature? And how much of that money could be appropriated somewhere else or not spent at all? And those are things that could be driving up the costs.
I tell you, I couldn't agree with you more. And I know there's movement afoot. I've been working with other colleagues of mine in a Doge type situation. I've already had people within the agency helping me out, looking for these efficiencies. Unfortunately, we had 105 days to deal with a lot of stuff. And you just can't do it. I mean, I'm a part-time legislator, quote unquote. You just can't get to all that. But when you start to look at the massiveness of this bureaucracy, you're exactly right. There is so much waste, redundancy, bureaucracy. There's money all over the place. And you've got to start digging at that. We do that in the budget. We do a portion of that. And I'm always asking questions. Why are we spending this on this? Why are we doing this over here? Can we change this over here? And, maybe 40, 50% of the time I get my way and I can make a change, right? Mm-hmm. But when you look at it, I mean, the citizens can go, if you go to theledge.com and you go to transportation, it's all there. You can click on, you can see the projects, you can see what the budget did, you can see where the money's appropriated, you can see all of that. But to your point, to get into the minutia of what's actually happening in the Department of Transportation and how many people we have employed and what they're all doing. And, and yes, is there DEI? Of course there's stuff like that in there because we were under 12 years of Jay Inslee. We've been under 30 years of Democrat rule. So all that stuff's in there. We would strip all that out if we could. And now that session's over and I'm out of the legislature, guess what I'm doing? My politics hat's on. I'm about to start traveling. I'm recruiting. I'm raising money. And I'm working to do the thing I can do, and that's put more people in the legislature that agree with me and you to help change this tide. That's the only thing that's going to stop what we just saw happen.
Representative Andrew Barkas, very important message to end on, which is that people, you have to get out there and vote, and you have to actually go out there and ballot harvest, and you have to actually stop saying, hey, it doesn't matter anyway, they're just going to rig the election, because then this is what happens. How many elections were decided by just a handful of votes? Representative Andrew Barkas, thank you much for joining us today. We really do appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. And like I said, thank you for being a voice and sharing and doing what you do every single day. We so appreciate it. And I always appreciate having the opportunity to talk to you, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, for sure. Very kind of you to say. Do appreciate the kind words. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Seems like a lot of you have a lot of things you want to say today. The text line's going crazy. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. A lot of people had questions for our last guest. They wanted to say, what exactly is a highway user fee? That's what Forrest Cat asked. That is the fee they want to charge you per mile. That's the highway user fee. So per mile. And he says, well, isn't that just called tolls? No, this is a different way they do it. They were trying to figure out if they were going to do it through your registration. Tolls, highway user fee, whatever it is per mile, it's all called taxes. They all fall in under that. They all fall in under highway robbery as well. Nothing? Okay, fine. Didn't deserve it on that one. Something else here. We have an official winner. Most of you agree with me that what tomorrow is going to be
Turd Ferguson.
That's right. Almost unanimous agreement. Some of you say Bob will actually call out the National Guard to deal with the protesters if there are any tomorrow. Now what remains to be seen is whether or not the protesters are going to block traffic, whether this is going to be mostly peaceful, actually peaceful, or a full-blown riot. We'll probably find that out tomorrow. When we come back, my friends, more of your texts, more of your calls, plus also a great interaction between RFK Jr. and Marco Rubio over what they're allowed to eat in the Trump cabinet. We'll have that awesome audio for you when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and Atom passes to Shadow Force. Yeah, another reason to always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI, left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Is your family having the same jokes at RFK Jr.'s expense that my family is? We like him. Don't get me wrong. We're not making fun of him that way. But anytime somebody has something really, really, really unhealthy with them, we're like, shh, don't tell RFK Jr. I'm eating this. Well, apparently that type of joke is in a lot of families. I've heard other people make it. But apparently it's in the cabinet as well. Here's Marco Rubio during the cabinet meeting that happened today to celebrate, commemorate, whatever word you would have, the first 100 days of the Trump administration.
Everyone around this table at some level, and because of Secretary Kennedy, I'm afraid to eat anything. So in front of him, yeah. He said Tootsie Rolls are okay in moderation. But it's a great team. And here's the second, and I tell this to people.
That's the joke a lot of us are making right now. Don't tell RFK Jr. I've seen the memes where there's like a giant cheeseburger and he's peeking out from behind a window. Well, actually, what he did say today was an interesting announcement. Give a listen.
And again, Secretary Rollins had the soda industry come and knock on her door very loudly, and they said to her, well, the SNAP program is not supposed to be about nutrition. She pointed out to them that there is no nutrition in a soda. And they said, well, it's not supposed to be about nutrition. And she said to them, the name of the program is supplemental nutrition. It is about nutrition.
That's literally the name of the program. The SNAP program has the word nutrition in it, trying to make sure everything's nutritious. So here's a question. Why can you buy that stuff with welfare? Why can you buy that kind of stuff with food stamps? Why do you need the junk food for it? The argument I heard, the only argument I've ever heard that made a little bit of sense is, hey, poor families want some fun food too. I get that, but at the same time, in favor of the food you actually need to survive? Look, I went to Washington, D.C., and I went to that kosher restaurant. I ate more than I should because, hey, we don't have that many good kosher restaurants here in Seattle. I pigged out a little bit. But I'm not saying anybody else should pay for that because I wanted to do that. Yeah, we shouldn't be paying for soda with welfare stamps. Plus, it creates other problems. You drink too much soda, guess what's going to happen? You're going to start looking a little bit more like me. It's not good for you. However, PepsiCo, heeding the call to ban artificial ingredients by Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., is saying that they are now going to get rid of petroleum-based products in their food. They said they're going to get rid of these artificial sweeteners. So now my question becomes, do you think we're going to have companies that are like, yes, we are all the junk food with all the bad things in them, come over to us? And do you think you're going to have companies that go, we're the healthy junk food. You can enjoy our food and not feel bad about yourself afterwards. I wonder if we're creating a new marketplace. Kind of like what happened with Michelle Obama when she banned condiments in schools. So no more ketchup, mustard, that kind of stuff. And then this just little black market of students selling sugar and selling ketchup and selling barbecue sauce to their peers emerged. I wonder if that's something that's going to happen. Me personally, I'm happy about this. If they get rid of all this artificial stuff and corn syrup from Pepsi, that means it's all sugar, which means it's kosher for Passover year-round, and I think the sugar stuff that you're getting from Coca-Cola, where it's not the corn syrup stuff, tastes way, way, way better. Let me know if you agree with me, disagree with me. Give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, the cavalry from the Trump administration is on the way to Washington. Lots of big things happening. We'll tell you what they're going to do to help out all of us. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and movie passes. But before we get to any of that, my friends, it seems like the Cavalry is on the way to Washington. Now, I preface this by saying, because some of you have gotten mad that I've been asking for this, for federal intervention. Yes, as a conservative, it really bothers me that I'm asking for federal intervention. Yes, I understand the ramifications of asking for that. What if somebody else is in charge of the federal government? That could end very, very badly. For the time being, though, if Washington State is going to continue to violate federal law, what other options do we have? Democrats control every single level of government in our state. Our state is a national joke. Would you like to know how bad it is? When I was in D.C. this week, and I was meeting with cabinet officials, and I was meeting with people from the Trump administration, every single one that sat down at my table, when I said, "Hi, I'm Ari Hoffman, nice to meet you. I'm afternoon drive host for KVI Seattle," they all went, "Oh, Seattle." I think it was the guy from the Border Patrol who said, "Oh, the belly of the beast." They all know. We are a national joke. We don't want to be like this. In fact, our stories constantly go viral, the things that happen in Washington. We are the canary in the coal mine for bad, bad, bad policies that fail everywhere. And in fact, we actually made President Trump's speech yesterday at a rally in Michigan.
Just this month, 2 Venezuelan members of TDA, Trendiragua, were arrested in Washington State for kidnapping a 58-year-old woman, driving a power drill through her hand to extort her bank account information, shooting her, leaving her for dead. And miraculously, she just survived, but she's not feeling so well. In January, Trendiragua member in Chicago kidnapped 3 women, took them in an alley, lined them up, and shot them each in the head. They all died. And the FBI recently assessed that these vicious gangs have been sent by the foreign regime in Venezuela to foment violence and instability in the United States of America. Can't let that happen. And it's not just, in all fairness, not Venezuela. It's all over the world. It's all over. They come in from the Congo. They come in from Africa. The Congo, they emptied out their prisons into our country. But they come from Africa, Asia, South America. They come from all over bad parts of Europe. That's why we've invoked the Alien Enemies Act to expel every foreign terrorist from our soil as quickly as possible.
On the border, I would rank President Trump and his administration A+++++. A+. I don't think I could give them higher marks than that. That is the best part of this administration. I want to know how you rank this administration. Whatever policy it is, you can do it by overall picture. You can do it by policy. Send us a text or give us a call at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And today, during the cabinet meeting, the members of the cabinet were actually saying exactly what's going to happen if you are a sanctuary city, if you are a sanctuary state. Because yesterday, it was Monday, Caroline Leavitt announced, yeah, we're coming after your funding. So what does that specifically mean? Here's the labor secretary.
Well, first of all, I think what you've heard amongst this team is the leadership, because it's given us the latitude really to collaborate amongst each other, not only in this room, as Jameson mentioned, we kind of get a break for a couple of hours here, but we stay in contact actually every other day that we're working for you. And I think what that says is I was speaking to, for instance, the Farm Bureau of Texas yesterday. I'm not the ag secretary, but it matters to the workforce. I'm working with the other secretaries, Lutnick and McMahon, on education and the workforce investments that you've asked me to do. Because as you've come in and negotiated these great repatriation of these companies and the investments, we're going to need that workforce to build back this economy. And I couldn't see that more as I've kicked off my 50-state tour. We've been in 5 states so far. We'll finish all 50 states by the end of the year. And what we're talking to is the American workforce and these companies about what the market demand is. That's the difference, that we finally have made that connection. What do they need? How quick do they need it? And how fast can I get these either apprenticeships toward that million that we've put that lofty goal? We've already added 80,000 new apprenticeships already just since January. So at the Department of Labor, that tour has kicked off, and I couldn't be more honored to be on the ground and see my colleagues that we're passing in the skies, but we're on the ground together because we're all collaborating together. One of the things that we're talking about, illegal immigration, I have put states on notice. I warned all 50 governors that if they continue to reward illegal immigration by treating unemployment benefits as a handout, they're going to lose their federal funding as well. We can no longer continue to give unemployment insurance to illegal immigrants, and so I've let those governors, and I sent out that letter last week. We also eliminated discriminatory DEI offices within the department, specifically.
Okay, we'll come back to the DEI stuff in a minute. But first, that means they informed Ferguson. If you guys are doing this, if you guys are giving illegal immigrants all these benefits, we're coming after your federal funding. Literally, they just expanded them in the most recent budget. So the question is Ferguson going to sign this budget, or is he going to line item veto that little thing right there that'll tick off the left if you get rid of all these benefits for illegal immigrants? But you know how much money that'll save? That'll save a lot. You can keep other pet projects, and you won't lose federal funding. Or does Bob Ferguson want the fight? I think that Bob Ferguson, Nick Brown, all of them actually want the fight. I think they want to have this out in court with the Trump administration, so that way they think it'll gain them some national recognition, keep their name in the headlines for everybody else. I truly believe that. I truly believe that people like Nick Brown and Bob Ferguson think they are going to run for higher office one day, and they think they'll be accepted with open arms. Secretary of Transportation had similar remarks, which could also be aimed at Washington State.
We have what is called follow the law. So we have so many states and municipalities that don't follow the law. So whether it's DEI, discriminating against Americans, whether they give illegals driver's license, or their sanctuary cities or states, if you don't follow the law, if you're giving license to illegals, if you're having DEI policies, we're not going to fund your projects. So you got to certify in your state or in your city to get road and bridge money or rail money that you're actually following the law, which includes the executive orders from you, Mr. President.
So those two illegal immigrants that President Trump mentioned in his remarks in Michigan, they had Washington driver's licenses. Now, that means we're giving them to illegal immigrants. And as I've told the story many, many times on the show about how my son registered to vote without providing any personal identification whatsoever, one of these guys had a Social Security card on him. How to get that? If he has a Social Security card on him, that likely means he's also registered to vote. These two violent Tren de Aragua gang members who allegedly drilled through a woman's hand. It's silly to even say allegedly, but legally you have to. She's got a giant hole in her hand. Shot her and threw her on the side of the road, left her for dead. These are the people who get the vote in Washington? Yeah, watch. Tara Simmons will be like, we need to be nicer to the Tren de Aragua members. We need to be nicer to the MS-13 gang members. Watch, next session, she's going to come back with a bill. If you're a gang member and you did your time, you automatically get to become a member of the Washington State Legislature, or you automatically get to be mayor of your city. Just watch. She'll come up with something absolutely insane like that. Secretary Turner, new friend of the show, who we spoke to this week when we were in Washington, D.C. You can get that podcast over at kvi.com. He had similar sentiments on this.
Also, you alluded to securing the border, and such a great job has been done with all of our partners at the table. And at HUD, we want to make sure that the resources that we have now, which is American taxpayer dollars, in the Biden administration, they prioritize illegal aliens over the American people. And so we signed an MOU with Secretary Noem at DHS to make sure that HUD-funded housing only goes to American citizens, and no longer will it go to illegal aliens coming across our border. We have about 9 million people living in subsidized housing in our country. 59% of illegal alien families use some sort of welfare program, costing us $42 billion a year. And so we have prioritized American and American people only to live in HUD-funded housing.
Do I need to remind anybody that Homeless Inc. around here gets funding from HUD and that they were using it for illegal immigrants? They were using it for quote-unquote refugees, those hotels, the homeless hotels that Dow Constantine bought for the King County Regional Homeless Authority. Do you remember that they weren't being used for the homeless? They were being used for people who came to this country illegally or who were refugees. Now, if they came here as refugees and they're actually refugees and not gang members, of course we want to help people out so they can flee whatever horrors they're coming from. But are they refugees or are they refugees who just claim to be? And they don't verify anything. We had no way of knowing who was on the planes after Afghanistan. They don't check for ID. They don't check for criminal records. We have the same problem at the border. So my question is, what were local Homeless Inc. agencies spending money on illegal immigrants? I would venture to say odds are it's a certainty, but let's get the paperwork and see how much they're doing. Oh, wait a minute, we already have it. Anytime you look at the websites for these homeless agencies, they always talk about undocumented migrants or unsheltered migrants or whatever the case may be. They're admitting that's exactly what they're doing. A lot of them admit it on their websites. Looks like Washington's about to lose a whole bunch of money. Now, as excited as I am about this, what this means is next legislative session, they're going to come with even more taxes, saying Trump's the big baddie, he took all this money away, and the lamestream media is going to go along with it. They're going to say, yeah, well, you know, Trump took away this much money and this much money and this much money. If only they had actually spent that much time analyzing the Democrats' out-of-control spending, then maybe things would be a little different. Big news announced today that the United States Department of Justice and the Department of Education have launched an investigation into Washington State for its policies that require schools to allow male students to participate in women's sports and use female restrooms and changing rooms, citing Title IX violations. According to the Post-Millennial, the federal agencies also accuse the state of requiring school districts to violate specific federal laws, such as the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA, and the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment, PPRA. The April 30th letter sent to the Washington Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, Chris Reykdal, comes after several school boards and districts within Washington State reported to the DOJ's Office of Civil Rights that OSPI was forcing public institutions to violate Title IX by prohibiting schools from banning trans-identifying male athletes from participating on girls' athletic teams. So let's back up for a second here. Do you remember this whole mess? They were considering at the WIAA, the agency that is in charge of sports here in Washington for schools. They were considering two proposals, two amendments. One that would have created a boys league, a girls league, and a trans league, and the other one that would have had a girls league and a however you identify league along with the boys, because we know it's a lot of these boys competing in women's sports. Both of them failed after Reykdal, after Nick Brown threatened them with legal action if they actually went forward with this. Additionally, OSPI had threatened to withhold funding to Washington State school districts that refused to comply with OSPI policies that violate Title IX. Some of the school boards and districts that reported the matter to the OCR included Meade School Board, Kennewick School Board, Moses Lake School District 161, Eastman School District, and Warden Joint Consolidated School District. Now, do you remember what these were? These were the policies where they said, oh, we don't want parents having rights, so make sure you hide the gender identity from these schools, like with the La Center School District. The Justice Department also claimed that Washington State enacted policies that violated the FERPA, which means including ordering students to state their preferred pronouns to teachers without parental consent. According to the state policy, schools can only notify parents about a student's self-proclaimed gender identity if a parent and or guardian files a records request. It's insane to me. You need to file a PDR. You know how long it takes to get some of those back? I'm still waiting on a bunch of the ones I filed about the Gaza encampment a year later. A year later. Earlier this year, OSPI ordered La Center School District to change policies to conform with state law to protect gender-expansive students in a manner which is apparently contrary to federal law. The DOE told us in a statement this included mandating that the district will not proactively share information with any student's gender identity without the student's consent, which appears to violate parents' rights under FERPA to inspect their child's school records. It's crazy to me that as a parent, I have to ask my kid for permission to get their medical records in this state, because once you're 13, you control your own medical records and your parents don't need it. Now, if you were going to say to me, Ari, what about the trans kids who have abusive parents or something? There are already protections for that. Kids can already go to other agencies for help. They did this to take away parental rights. They don't want you having authority over your kids. They don't want you having any rights over your kids. Washington State believes they can raise your kids better than you can. Now, the department added that they are committed to protecting parental rights. Remember when a whole bunch of us in Washington worked with Let's Go Washington to get Initiative 2081 passed, which was securing the parental rights? And then the Democrats were so afraid of it, they didn't want it on the ballot for the election season, so they passed it in the Washington State legislature, knowing that later they could alter the thing, and that's exactly what they did this year. Like I said, it kills me that I'm asking the federal government for help. But when our local officials are ignoring what parents want so bad, what other choice do we have? The Department of Justice and Department of Education concluded the letter by stating that federal funds could be pulled should Washington State not comply with federal law. Republican Washington Congressman Dan Newhouse praised the investigation, writing in a statement, "I commend the U.S. Department of Education for initiating this investigation as we work to restore common sense and fairness in Washington classrooms and athletics. The state of Washington is actively ignoring an executive order threatening federal funds to schools in the process. OSPI must be held accountable for their attack on parental rights." Yes, Congressman Dan Newhouse is 1,000% correct. It's insane that the state thinks they can raise your kids better than you can. So this is huge news. This is welcome news. But I got a question for you guys. Are you concerned that we're setting a bad precedent by asking for federal intervention? Think about this for a minute. The feds, under a Democrat, Joe Biden wanted to tear down the Snake River dams. That's something Congress can do. So federal intervention can screw up our entire power supply. So, are you worried we're setting a bad precedent, or do you think we have no other choice? Give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Meanwhile, over on the text line, how are you guys rating the first 100 days? Guys, Trump's an A-, says John out in Lakewood. He says, and yes, we heard this as well, KVI News just announced a signed rare earth deal with Ukraine. We'll cut out China. That's a huge deal. 1,000% it actually is. This one from Joyce says, I stand by President Trump. He inherited a mess from Biden. God bless Trump and God bless J.D. Vance. This one here from the 425 rates Trump an A+. Seems like a lot of you are very excited about this administration and really approving all the things they're doing. Let us know what you think with a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, a new exclusive story about a scandal that is rocking City Hall. We'll have all those salacious details for you when we come back. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on The Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, if you don't follow me and Mike over on social media, you should make sure to do that right away. You can watch Mike have fun stirring up some of the crazies on social media. That's half the fun. Plus, also, you can get our podcasts over there when Mike posts them every day after the show. You can also follow me over at ARI. I was about to give out the email address. You can follow me over at the Hotfather on Twitter, Ari Hoffman Official over on Facebook and Instagram. Well, we've got a story now with an update that you're not going to get anywhere else.
Talk Radio 570 KVI, an Ari Hoffman Show exclusive.
This is a story me and Jonathan Cho have been working on together, that a romantic note, which was discovered in a city-issued SUV, helped fuel a scandal that brought down Seattle's former police chief, Adrian Diaz. But a recent handwriting analysis has raised serious questions about its authenticity and credibility of the affair allegations that followed. The anonymous handwritten birthday card appeared to be a love letter addressed to Diaz and was reportedly found by his security detail. Now, the front of his card featured an Ewok, the fictional character, furry guys from Star Wars. That's Return of the Jedi. If you don't like Ewoks, you were an adult when you saw that movie. If you love Ewoks, you were a kid. Even though there was no proof, gossip quickly spread within SPD that was written by Jamie Tompkins, the former news anchor turned police chief of staff. It read, "You woke me up like a prince in one of your Disney movies. I hope I always know your kiss, I love you." To some, the note seemed like confirmation of rumors that Diaz and Tompkins had an inappropriate relationship, a theory reportedly accepted by Mayor Bruce Harrell, who viewed the card as evidence Diaz was attempting to conceal an affair with a subordinate he promoted. However, according to a forensic handwriting analysis commissioned by Diaz's legal team, she may not have written the note at all. A certified document examiner reviewed a copy of the note and compared it to 26 samples of Tompkins' known handwriting. The original was requested for the analysis, but was not provided by the city. The analysis, which was obtained by the Post-Millennial, concluded that the card was probably not written by Jamie Tompkins. The analysis determined the body of the card was not written by the writer of the other documents that were provided for the analysis. Diaz's attorneys also say the handwriting on the envelope is not the same as the handwriting inside the card, implying several people may have been involved. Hang on a second. Let me ask the adults in the room for a minute. Mike, I'll ask you this question too. I assume your wife and you give each other cards on birthdays and anniversaries and things like that. Yes, no, you that kind of family?
Sure.
Okay. My wife has occasionally gotten me the silly card, except she doesn't go to the kids section to get me the card. It's usually an adult-themed card or something like that, right? I mean, that whoa. All right, take that back. That was phrased badly. Like, it could be a Darth Vader joke, but it's like, you are the best father. You are our father. Definitely made out to an adult. I'm looking at images of this card. There's a flippin' Ewok on the cover. I mean, this looks like it's for a 6-year-old's birthday. Unless somebody's got a fascination with Ewoks, and I don't want to know about that, but it's a really weird kind of card to give an adult. Usually you give them the I love you ones or something like that. This is what they are basing this entire scandal on? It's a very, very odd thing. A very, very strange thing. Now, something else is that Seattle's Office of Inspector General for Public Safety hired Barron Liebman, a Portland-based law firm, to look into the matter. An internal email exchange between Diaz and one of the firm's attorneys obtained by the Post-Millennial shows that the card was found inside the vehicle on in May of 2024, 2 months before his actual birthday. All right, I know women prepare for birthdays in advance, but that's really, really far. And don't they usually stash it beforehand? So if she gave it to him for his birthday, either it's been sitting in that car a really, really long time, or you gave it to him 2 months before his birthday? I have questions. So Diaz went on to ask, will this birthday information be part of the investigation process? What is the chain of custody of this card? How was it maintained during the time? Why was this card not fingerprinted? And that's where the email communications end. So meaning Diaz was asking, hey, have you done, the police stuff to investigate the police chief? Okay, guys, let me give a little bit of my analysis of this situation for a minute, because we've been giving it this whole time of this scandal. I was not Diaz's biggest fan. I wasn't. I did not like the job he was doing. I didn't think he was qualified for the job. I said so at the time. What else did I say when the scandal broke, Mike? Do you remember? I said, it sounds like the dude's being railroaded. None of this makes sense for many, many reasons. There's some things that Diaz did, in fact, I think, to make it worse. Like all of a sudden, hey, I've got a wife and kids and I'm gay when the scandal broke. That's not the best timing or anything like that. But the more I see about this, Jamie Tompkins, she has no culpability in this. It was a matter of, it seemed like people were making up rumors about her to take down Diaz. That's what this is all reeking of to me right now. This is salacious palace gossip, palace intrigue from here in Seattle. But the question is, was this some kind of conspiracy just to get rid of Diaz? Now, Washington is a right-to-work state, which means you can just fire Diaz. Maybe you're worried about the police union. Maybe you're worried about some kind of lawsuit. But you could say, dude, you're done. And don't forget, they kept him around for a while. First it was, you're not chief. Here's this other job for you. Why were they so intent to take out Diaz? He did whatever they wanted, assuming that's the direction we're going here. I have lots of questions about this whole thing. I could speculate all day long. This whole story isn't making a lot of sense to me. But when you compare this to what else we found out in the last couple days, that this revelation undermines a central piece of evidence backing up the scandal that ultimately led to Diaz's firing and put Tompkins at the center of months of harassment and speculation, both inside the Seattle Police Department and among the general public, the authenticity of the note is more than a technical detail. Tompkins is seeking $3 million from the city for alleged psychological and reputational harm she has endured during her 18 months with SPD and from the fallout of the scandal. In a demand letter that was filed this week with Mayor Harrell's office, her attorney describes a campaign of sexual harassment and rumor mongering initiated by police personnel after she accepted the role of chief of staff in early 2023. According to Tompkins, the rumor that she and Diaz were romantically involved began circulating as soon as her hiring was announced. Officers and high-ranking officials allegedly made lewd comments about her appearance, speculated about her relationship with Diaz, and even surveilled her home. One officer reportedly bragged about being able to track her scent and admitted to watching her on security cameras. That's very Silence of the Lambs. You guys know which scene I'm talking about. That's awful. Tompkins maintained she reported the harassment immediately, informing SPD leadership and human resources during her first week on the job. In the following months, the accusations escalated. The Office of Police Accountability found Officer Valerie Carson had spread the affair rumor and unlawfully surveilled Tompkins' apartment, leading Tompkins to file for a protection order. Multiple SPD personnel, including former Fox 13 colleague Duran Dace, admitted to spreading the rumors without factual basis. Now, this is something, guys, I'm going to tell you a little bit, peek behind the curtain, as they say. I heard these rumors. I heard these rumors from a lot of people. Mike, did you ever hear me report on any of them? Ever, until it became news that this was all going on and I was quoting from the Seattle Times or Como News or anything else like that. Did you ever hear me mention this story before that?
Two flashes mean no.
Right, because it was always, hey, we heard this, or did you hear about this? I love that I'm following journalistic integrity and a whole bunch of other people aren't. That's, by the way, even crazier that that's what's going on. We did not cover this story until it was in the news. There's a lot of stories like that, by the way. In fact, our old station manager, Rick Van Sice, taught me something very, very important. He said it is more important to be right than be first. So I don't have any guilt about this story at all. We're reporting the news as it happens and commenting on the news as it happens. Yeah, we didn't get it first, but that's fine by me because all the people who ran out there to talk about this love note, like KUOW, like the New York Post, by the way, they all may have gotten it really, really wrong. And guess what? If you can't provide your sources, if you can't prove you had two sources, you're ripe for a lawsuit. Absolutely. You can't write articles based on rumors and salacious gossip. This could take down City Hall. This really, really could. Because Bruce Harrell is named in these things. And here's where it gets really bad. Tompkins' letter to the mayor alleges that Harrell himself made inappropriate remarks to her, allegedly telling Diaz during a private meeting that he would do Tompkins and that it's fine if Diaz had slept with her. Remarks Diaz reportedly rejected. Now, okay, I remember another guy who did locker room talk and the media didn't shut up about it. Do you know that this was all in the same letter everybody published yesterday or 2 days ago, Mike, when you first saw this whole thing and sent it over my direction? And do you remember seeing this written up in any of those? Because it was written up in that letter. I don't remember seeing it at all.
How about new?
Exactly. I don't remember seeing this in any of them.
No, in fact, actually, I think at that point, the only person that was reporting on that was our good friend Jonathan Cho.
That's it. He was the only one. So without independent media, we wouldn't know any of this. Look, we don't know how this is all going to shake out right now. There's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of question marks going on. But there is culpability at Seattle Police Department. There's culpability at the mayor's office. There's culpability with the media of everybody who jumped on this thing. I couldn't understand why they were railroading Diaz. I still don't have the answer to that question, and I am not his biggest fan as police chief. I was really hard on the guy. In fact, Mike, he never came on the show. He never came on the show, likely because of how hard I was on him. Look, people listen to my show. Right? People disagree with me. Listen to the show. But something is amiss here. Something is really, really wrong, and I want to know the why. We're going to keep searching for the why. Jonathan Cho and I are going to have more updates on this on social media tonight. You can follow him over at Cho Show over on X. You can follow me at Ari Hoffman Official on Facebook and Instagram, the Hofffather over on Twitter. When we come back, my friends, excuse me, I can't even speak normally. The difference between influencers and journalists that I saw with my own two eyes at the White House this week. Tell you what's going on when we come back. You'll listen to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and 2 Adam passes to Shadow Force. Yeah, another reason, always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. When I was at the White House this week and I was leaving, I saw something that at first I didn't understand and needed some help understanding. Now, everybody in my generation hates influencers. We hate them. We find them annoying. We find them irritating, and yet we follow the influencers we like. I follow the ones that talk about sci-fi garbage. Mike follows the ones that talk about Transformers, assuming they're good, not the hacks, right? We follow the ones we like. Everybody has the influencers they follow, which give them information. There was a dude as I was leaving. Now, let me describe this for a minute. Beautiful, sunny day, 75 degrees. On the walkway, walking out of the White House towards what I call the Josh Lyman gate. And for those of you who watch The West Wing, you know exactly which one I'm talking about. The one they're always coming and going from in The West Wing, that one. So that gate, I'm walking up the driveway, past all the signs with the illegal immigrants on them, past the mainstream media right there. And I'm hauling this giant, big case with all my gear. I got a backpack on. I got a suit, which is too hot for the weather I'm in. And I'm just trying to get out of there. But on the driveway, there's all these influencers in front of the media. All these influencers, there's some doing dances, there's some doing interviews. One guy particularly caught my eye. He was dressed like Donald Trump, but had very, very, very blonde hair. I didn't catch his name, but I was a little annoyed because he was doing whatever he was doing. I'm trying not to get in the shot. In fact, there's a whole bunch. It was rotten with influencers, and I'm trying not to get in the shot because I don't want to be in the background of these things, but also I don't want to, whatever content they're doing. So I walk out of there a little annoyed. I go, okay, maybe now I see what the mainstream media is talking about. Who's actually a journalist? But something was tugging at my heart, going, don't start being a gatekeeper, Hoffman. That's what the mainstream media does. And if you're going to advocate for journalism, you have to advocate for free speech. You have to advocate for these fools. It was crystallized later by a discussion I had with my sister-in-law. So my sister-in-law DMs me and goes, hey, how was the White House? And I go, it was awesome. It was great. Now, my sister-in-law is also an influencer, by the way. And I said, and she's a very popular one in the Jewish world, in the kosher food world. So what happens is she said, hey, did you see this guy? And sent me a video of the guy I was making fun of in my mind on the walkway there. And I said, yeah, I saw him. He looked like a bit of a doofus. And she goes, oh, I get all my content from him. So I went and I looked at, she doesn't do politics. She's not into politics at all. But she was looking at his stuff because this guy actually breaks down politics on an easy to understand level through all this influencer garbage. It's not my cup of tea. But who am I to judge his content? Free speech is free speech. And actually, I have to say, he does a really good job breaking this stuff down for the average person who doesn't listen to KVI all day long. So I got to say, I was actually kind of impressed, and right there kind of changed my worldview a little bit, where I go, all right, these influencers have a place. Now, there's some other influencers there that we're not going to talk about right now because I didn't look up their content, but I did look up his. And I will say, by inviting all these people to the White House, by inviting us to the White House, I could have asked those secretaries from transportation, from HUD, for anything I wanted, and I did. What was the question I asked every single one of them? When is the cavalry coming to Washington? We feel abandoned. We need help. We need hope. Come help us. That was the main thing. But anybody can ask them these questions, and they respond. They respond every single time. This is what the press secretary said earlier today.
President Trump is truly the most transparent and accessible president in American history, and we are just following his example. That's a little bit why this press briefing today is tardy, because the president was hosting a more than 2-hour-long cabinet meeting with his entire cabinet. Each secretary went around the room to talk about the promises they are delivering on for the American public and the directives they are executing at the behest of the President of the United States. Can you ever remember a cabinet meeting in which the media were welcomed into the room to ask questions of the entire federal government? No, you can't, because it never happened. Joe Biden was afraid to speak to the press because he was mentally incompetent in driving our country into the ground. But fortunately, President Trump has been incredibly hard at work cleaning up Joe Biden's messes and making our country great again.
Joe Biden didn't even have cabinet meetings. One of them he let his wife run, just for show. I'm going to give the Trump administration an A+++++ in something else, dealing with the media. I'm giving you an A+, guys, because the accessibility that you offer to everybody, the fact that I got to go to the White House this week, which was such an honor, was such a – it's a checkbox, and I want to go back. I want to go back. I really do. And they said, oh, yeah, you just tell us, what you want to come for, and we're more than happy to have you back. They are amazing at that. And the transparency that they are bringing to all this, contrasted with the last administration that covered up everything for Joe Biden, it's really an amazing thing and unheard of in government. We can't even get local officials to respond to us, but the White House is responding to us. In fact, they just responded to a query I sent. The State Department literally just responded to something, and during the commercial break, I'm going to see what they actually wrote. Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news giveaway, your good news headlines, your chance to win a $50 gift card plus movie tickets. When we come back, you're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news giveaway, got some good news headlines for you. Now, anybody who's a longtime listener of the Ari Hoffman Show knows that one of the funniest things about me is that I have an unhealthy obsession with McDonald's, a store that I cannot eat at, a restaurant that I cannot eat at. I have a very unhealthy obsession because for me, if I could eat non-kosher for a day, it would just be all the convenience food. I love the unhealthy fast food. I get the 2 times ago when I went to Israel, my father-in-law says to me, he goes, Ari, so what'd you eat while you were there? That's a common Jewish question in cities like Seattle where we have lousy kosher restaurants. He goes, what'd you eat on your trip? And I said, I ate all the hamburgers. I ate all the hamburgers in the entire country. That's what I did. So yes, for me, one of 2 things. I would either go to all the unhealthy places that are easy and accessible, or I'd go out to the Washington State Fair and I'd eat all the barbecue stuff there if I had one day of not keeping kosher. Anyway, McDonald's has revealed that they have a new permanent menu item. McCrispy strips are coming to its U.S. menu. Now, Mike, I have a question about the McCrispy strips. You like the chicky nuggets, right?
I do like some chicky nuggies, yes.
So
with the sweet and sour sauce.
I assume these are just bigger chicky nuggies?
I think so. Well, the thing... see, we're going to get into strip legislation here because the Chicken McNugget is... it's made from various chicken parts that are put into a mold, not unlike Play-Doh.
Oh, no.
And then are like breaded and fried and all of that other stuff. I think your Mac strip over here is more of like a more traditional chicken strip where it's like
chicken breast and
like cut from chicken of breast and then kind of put in that way. So it depends upon if you want sawdust or if you want like actual chicken meat.
I'm with you.
Now, if you ask me, my preference, I take the chicky nuggies because nostalgia. But some folks might prefer a more traditional chicken strip over a nugget.
Sure,
so it's
I like
not just size; it's also like texture and flavor and consistency.
I'm with you. I like the honey glazed kind of chicken strips with the honey sauce, the honey mustard sauce. I like the honey mustard sauce. Those are my absolute favorite kind of things. I'm curious about this. Now, my son, when we go to the McDonald's in Israel, which is kosher, he's always getting the chicky nuggies. Me, I'm getting the biggest hamburger in the joint and the fries and all the other stuff. But now, you know what I might do? I might get McCrispy strips as a side dish for my giant hamburger next time in Israel. I have to see if they actually serve those things at the Israel location.
Well, also with the name there, the McCrispy strip, I think that also, to me, says it's a more aggressive coating, breading type of thing.
Yes.
Whereas Chicken McNuggets, not super crispy.
They look kind of...
They're crispy adjacent.
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, but like something like this, like I don't have the article in front of me, but I imagine this is something more like a real fried chicken, like real craggly looking.
So
type
I gotta
of thing.
say, it depends on the picture. There's 3 pictures in the article. Some are looking like the ones you hope they are. Some are looking more chicky nuggy version. I think it's going to be one of those when you order it, that's when you actually find out.
But regardless, text me what your favorite McDonald's dipping sauce is for your chicken McNuggets.
There you go.
206-421-5757. I like the sweet and sour, but I've got room in my heart for the barbecue as well.
See, what's funny is I like honey mustard sauce. I don't like mustard, and I don't like honey. But when you put them together, something magical happens, and it's absolutely delicious. Speaking of something magical, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. Today we're giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout, delivery order, and more. We're also giving away 7 steps to a successful retirement and a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. Visit madronafinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. Last but certainly not least, we're giving away 2 Atom passes to the new movie Shadow Force, which is in theaters on May 9th. You can watch the trailer now at youtube.com. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement, a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, and 2 Atom passes to Shadow Force. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. 5757. Well, my friends, that's going to do it for us today. But fear not, we will be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, And, of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.